I don't really believe that most people are born with mental health problems. I think that people who have got mental health problems have them developed over a long period of time. I think that it's experiences in their lives which, combined with maybe their personalities, contribute to developing the mental health problem. And I have been thinking about this a lot recently. I've always tried to find, maybe the right word to use is someone to blame for my mental health problems, but I've been thinking a lot about how early childhood experiences, mainly to do with bullying, have made me who I am today, and have sort of contributed to how my personality has developed and how my mental health issues have developed. If I start about as far back as I can remember, I was about 4 and I was in reception, and in my class there was this girl who I sort of considered a friend, and I think at that age I wasn't like friends with her because I wanted to be friends with her. I was friends with her because I'd known her from nursery school and she sort of came with me to infant school, so we were just naturally friends. But for some reason I just never liked her, and I don't think she ever liked me. She was one of these very outgoing, confident, outspoken girls who's probably a bit of a nuisance to her parents and to her teachers, but not in a very bad way. I don't know what it was about her, but anyway, one day when we were in class, I think it was a few years later, maybe it was in year 2, so 6 or 7 years old, and we were doing the task that we would set to do on a little table, and this girl asked the table, you know, who do you fancy? And it sounds really weird talking about that now at the age of 18, nearly 19, that we were 7 years old and thinking that this was really important to discuss, but at that point I did fancy a boy, and I use the inverted commas because I don't think you can properly know what romantic feelings feel like at that age. It's sort of instilled on you from TV and stuff. But being the naive person that I was, and who wouldn't be naive at 6 years old, to be honest, I told the girl, I whispered in her ear who I fancied, because she told me that she wouldn't tell anybody. But you can probably see where this is going. She wasn't true to her word, and she shouted it around the classroom who I fancied, and everybody turned around and laughed at me. And that is probably one of the most vividest memories I have from my early primary school life, and it's quite sad really that is such a negative experience for me, yet it's the one that I clearly remember the most. And I remember just sitting there trying not to cry because it was embarrassing for me. And I've never been, after that, I think it might have been that experience which contributed to the fact that I've never been able to trust a friend enough to be able to confide in them about romantic relationships. I mean, it's only now, just in the last year or so, to my very, very closest friends who I really, really trust, that I can even start thinking about confiding that sort of stuff in. And it might have been because of that, well, I'm pretty sure it was because of that anonymous girl who said that, who did that to me. And in a similar way, I remember being in year 6 and a boy cornered me in the playground at the end of break time. The bell had gone and everybody started going in, but he cornered me in the playground and asked me if I'd ever kissed a boy. Now, I was 10 or 11 at this time, and for some reason I thought that kissing a boy was some sort of rite of passage I should have gone through by then, but I hadn't. So I was ashamed to say no, so I didn't say no. I was just trying to get away from the conversation, but I wasn't physically strong enough to get away from him, because he was bigger than me. And he just kept questioning me, have you ever kissed a boy, have you ever kissed a boy? And it's that, I don't remember how I got out of it, but that was another very negative experience to do with boyfriends, relationships in general. And I feel like I just can't trust people, because I've had my first experiences of talking about relationships have been very, very negative. But bullying is not always confined to kids. My year 6 teacher, who for the most part was a very good teacher, but he was sort of quite unconventional with it. He was not very politically correct, I don't think. I think if he was teaching now, he probably wouldn't have got away with it, but this was 10 years ago. So, my year 6 teacher, one time we were in ICT, computer technology, I guess, and my password wasn't working. It just wouldn't let me on the system. So, and for some reason, my year 6 teacher, he just didn't want to deal with it, and I can't remember the exact circumstances that led to this, but he made me say out loud, "I am a little pest," and like in front of the whole class was listening, and not only was it humiliating, but it was so upsetting. I can remember saying it, my voice was cracking because I was trying not to cry, and for the rest of the year he called me Little Pest, or LP for short, and he even started calling my little sister Tiny Pest to go with it. And at the time it was quite funny, I didn't really think of it as a big deal, but that has stayed with me for a long, long time, and it can't have been beneficial at all to have such an authority figure as this guy was at the time tell an 11-year-old that they're a little pest, and have it reiterated to them over and over again in their head for the rest of the year. And I'm sensitive, you know, I was a very sensitive kid, and I didn't believe it, really. I don't know if I did believe it or not, but perhaps on some level I think maybe having that teacher, someone who I respected, tell me that I was a little pest so often may have led to me, well, it can't be good for your self-esteem, can it? And my self-esteem has always been very, very, very low, and still I have lots of difficulty actually believing people when they give me compliments. So yeah, I think that experience probably had quite a lot to do with it. It's just, I'm trying to think of other things, but like all these little things I'm thinking about, that may have contributed to mental health problems, they're so small and they seem so insignificant, but they made such a huge impact on my life. Like one time when I was in year 5 or 6, I got this new coat, and when you're in year 5 or 6, you know, your coat is a pretty large part of your, it's a huge fashion statement when you get a new coat, you know, it's a big deal. But my coat, it was sort of like khaki green. It wasn't a particularly nice colour, but my best friend at the time said to me, "What are you wearing?" Like that, and I can hear it in my head. I thought I liked this coat. I thought this coat was pretty cool. But, you know, just having the first person to see me wearing that coat, being the girl who was my best friend, and to tell me that was just not very nice. And I keep saying the girl who this, the girl who that, but I don't want to say any names just in case. But the girl who up until a year ago had been my best friend for 9 years, I remember 9 years ago, when we met, she would do things like push her nose up, like this in front of me, and make piggy sounds, like oinking sounds at me. And she would flick me on the skin, and poke me, and just generally not be a nice person. Yet I still was her friend for 9 years after that, and I don't really know why. But looking back on it, I could see, I know it wasn't a big surprise to me when she ended up being the bully that she was. When I went to secondary school, I didn't so much get bullied in the way that we might consider bullying now. I went to a comprehensive that pretty much takes everybody and anybody. For the first 2 years I then moved to a grammar school, but for the first 2 years I was at a comprehensive with people who, I'm trying not to be stereotypical, but most of them didn't care about their education. They didn't have any respect for anybody, and pretty much every day me and all the other year 7 girls being 11 years old are probably the most vulnerable people there. So if you're a 16-year-old boy, why wouldn't you trip up an 11-year-old girl in the corridor, you know? I got tripped up, I got my backpack pulled so I couldn't walk when it was on my back. I had a backpack, that was cool. I remember I was going down the stairwell once and someone above me spat on my head. I'd spit in my hair for the rest of the day. I was in the toilet at one point and one of the girls threw a packet of crisps over my head over the top of the toilet. So even though I really liked that school, it was just those little experiences pretty much every day that couldn't have been particularly beneficial to me. And maybe I sound like a bit of a wuss at the moment, but although I dealt with them really well, like in those 2 years when I was sort of 12 or 13, I really toughened up as a person. But it's just the constant sort of being belittled, as much as I think I have been, couldn't have contributed very well to me, to be honest. So yeah, I think that's about it. I'm not going to go into the sort of more recent bullying, because I've done a video on that before, but because of the most recent bullying that I have experienced, I believe that, I've forgotten how to make friends, how to be around people. I've forgotten how to socialise. I've forgotten what normal 18-year-olds do. I'm moving out in a few weeks, and I'm already convincing myself that no one's going to like me, because everybody who I've ever been friends with has ended up not really liking me. And I know it's really nothing to do with me, it's their own problem, and I've just been unlucky. But at the back of my mind I'm thinking, when I've been friends with a group of best friends, and when I mean best friends I say really good friends, with a group of girls for at least 5 years, maybe more, and then they leave you at the drop of a hat, there's got to be something wrong with me, you know? And I don't want to sound all depressing, but I'm just trying to get across how those experiences have really, really influenced me and my way of thinking and my personality and my mental health problems. This is getting really, really long, although the first time I recorded this video it was 25 minutes long, so I'm doing well considering. But yeah, I'm gonna go. Those experiences that I've described, I think are the ones that influenced me the most. Yeah, I hope everyone's alright. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.